Everyone has a Zagat guide. Zagat Survey is the world's leading provider of consumer survey-based information on where to eat, drink, stay, and play worldwide. Their ratings and reviews are based on the opinions of more than 325,000 surveyors from around the globe, and it has empowered consumers by providing them with a vehicle to express their opinions on restaurants, nightlife, hotels, and shopping, and more. And now they are celebrating the 30th anniversary of their first guidebook, Tim and Nina Zagat. Tim Zagat is the co-founder and co-chair and chief executive officer of the survey, and Nina Zagat is the co-founder. And Joan Hamburg is probably well known to all of you. She's been covering the scene as a journalist and broadcaster for many years. She's known throughout the country for her award-winning consumer affairs reporting. She interviews A-list Hollywood and Broadway celebrities, political newsmakers, and best-selling authors. And her consummate shopping tips, advice, resources, and broadcasts from London, Paris, the Hamptons, and famous restaurants such as Sardi's and Broadway theaters are legendary. Her show is on WOR AM 710 on Monday through Friday from 11 to 1 a.m. Please welcome Joan Hamburg.
Now, you heard, it's so nice to see all of you. You heard an introduction about the Zagats. When they said 30 years, I literally couldn't believe it because I knew Tim and Nina when they were lawyers. Both lawyers, both out of Yale, and in fact, Tim was even involved with the Peace Corps. And they loved to eat, as you know. But they were busy lawyers, corporate lawyers, litigators. And in fact, when they were living in Paris for a while, too, Nina went to Cordon Bleu, her favorite, to cook. And when they came back to New York, if you were lucky enough to be a friend of theirs or on a list, you got their little list of what restaurants they liked. Now, who's going to really go to that trouble? We all love our friends, but, you know, we're not going to, and they weren't even emailing. They were calling them up and just telling them. And this hobby started into something extraordinary. They are truly among the most amazing entrepreneurial stories in this country because I don't think even they, 30 years ago, dreamt that they would be selling all over the world. And believe it or not only is it food, hotels, service, they even have now dating guides. Can you imagine? I mean, I don't know how you rate that, but they have that. And everything they touch sells like crazy. I want to introduce you to Tim and Nina Zagat, who have changed the way we eat and think about food. Welcome, Tim. Now, I know you before we even get started, you wanted to say something to the audience.
Well, I don't want to say something. I want to ask them a question. And that is, I would like to do a little survey. And I would like to know what you would like us to focus on tonight. And, for example, would you like to hear about how the survey got started and the entrepreneurial lessons? That's number one. Would you like to hear about the revolution in food in America over the last 30 or more years? And that's number two. Or would you prefer to hear about the things we couldn't print because our lawyers told us it would be a source of libel?
We like that.
See my friend in the front row.
He wants to know the gossip.
He writes restaurant reviews, and you're only 12 or 13? 12, my God.
Whom do you write them for?
Well, I haven't really gotten a column or anything. I've been writing them as a hobby, but Time Up for Kids and GQ, I've been just trying as hard as I can.
Go home and
let me
shake
tell you,
your
I've
kids.
read some of them, and they're really, really good.
It's fantastic, but you slightly older when you guys started.
Yeah,
But
you're
believe it or
starting
not, that's
earlier
how they
than we
it.
did. But let me read you a few of the things. I gather you'd prefer to hear the things the lawyers said we couldn't talk about. This restaurant, I'll go easy on it. This restaurant suffers from delusions of adequacy. Also known as Ebola Cafe.
That's cruel.
That's why you don't say
And
what
if
the
you
restaurant
try
is.
to guess this one, sit in the no shooting section. It's a real
Rayo's.
restaurant. No,
No.
Sit in-
actually, Rayo's
Rayo's
could be.
do
Could
it.
be.
Everyone comes in there with a little weapon.
You know,
Not
somebody
everyone.
was shot down.
Yeah.
Sparks. Oh, I shouldn't
Sparks?
tell that. I shouldn't say that.
Well, the steak is good.
This is a great old restaurant which was filled with flowers and all the things that make flowers grow.
Uh-oh. Granui?
How do you say? No, it's a restaurant that's gone. Had its day. Another restaurant which was, how do you say roadkill in Chinese?
Oh.
They go on. I want to tell you about one that before we get going. I want to tell you about one that we printed. I thought it was a little risque, and I don't know how many of you know the restaurant One If by Land, Two If by Sea.
Of course.
I mean, most of the men in the restaurant are on their knees proposing at any one time. But, you know, it's very romantic, and it has quite good food, and it has piano music and firelight and candlelight, and it's very, very romantic. Anyway, we got a quote, this is about 10 years ago, and I thought it was maybe a little bit over the line, and I asked some of our women editors, and they said, go with it. They said, it's safe.
What was it?
If this place doesn't get you laid, nothing will. Now, that isn't so bad, but we got about 200 letters, mostly from women's clubs in New Jersey, as best I could
insulting,
tell,
right?
saying this was the most terrible thing and we were supposed to be a family god and it shouldn't have done that. Anyway, the angriest letter we got was from a guy who said we had not lived up to our representations.
All's fair,
Yeah.
right? Well, because here's our young man already doing restaurant reviews, and when Tim and Nina, I was telling them that when you started, both very busy lawyers, and the lucky friends would get notes or phone calls with your recommendations, little newsletters, but that started changing. And when I talk about entrepreneurship, it was a huge step ultimately for you both to walk away from big corporate practices and decide we're going to do this. What was the process? Nina?
Okay.
Nina's the practical one anyway.
Well, what happened was, from the very beginning, it was based on getting all of our friends to participate. And it started at a wine tasting group where everybody had pads and paper, and we asked people to write down their comments as they did on the wines about lots of different restaurants, because nobody felt that there was a source that they could go to at the end of the day to say,
Right.
Joan, let's have dinner. Where shall we go?
Exactly.
What do? You can't start pulling out your little clippings from the New York Times.
So
They're not
you-
little clippings, they're big clippings.
Wait,
So it started by asking people to separately rate food, decor, service for restaurants on a 30-point scale, and to give a pithy, witty comment. And it started on mimeograph sheets of paper.
like
And
it was a hobby.
That's
You remember
right.
mimeograph? You remember mimeograph?
Of course, mimeograph.
That dates it. But Nina's not getting it quite right. The way it really started was a friend of ours who was a member of this wine tasting group, Ivan Karp, who was a very
and
famous
gallery
OK
Yeah.
Harris Gallery. He started attacking the restaurant critic of a newspaper which will remain nameless because it's too powerful to remember now. But he really went at it, and he was outspoken when he was sober. and he'd had already 10 glasses of wine, and I was sitting there with 10 glasses of wine, and when he got through, I said, why don't we do a survey of our friends, and everybody just turn the page and give us 10 friends' names who eat out a lot and who you think would enjoy participating. And actually, that's the way it started. Now, Nina, go back.
Anyway, we did that for several years with the number of people growing, and anybody who participated got a free copy of the results, which we still do today.
Right.
And then it really started to take off and started taking a lot of our time and a lot of investment.
So at what point did Tim say, enough of this law stuff, let's do this?
Well, first Nina said, enough
Nina is a tax lawyer, and now you can understand why.
Enough of spending all this after-tax money on doing a survey. Let's go around, see some publishers. Maybe we can arrange to get our guide published as a real guide. Anyway, we went to see every publisher in town, and guess what they all said?
No.
That's right.
Including 2 that reported to me at my job at that time.
They said, no way.
Everybody turned us down.
Like, who wants it?
Who cares about what other people think?
Who cares what ordinary people think?
People
we
wanna
only
hear from
want to
the
know about
experts.
experts.
So that and 20 other reasons and the size and everything about it was what the publishers at the time said wouldn't work, so that we should just forget about it. And of course, we were not about to do that. So we started doing it ourselves.
And at what point did you both say, you know, this is really a good thing? We don't have to practice law anymore?
3 years later, New York Magazine did a cover story, and our sales went from 40,000 copies a year to 75,000 copies a month in 1 month. And suddenly, that's when we decided we ought to leave the law.
It's a business.
We were suddenly making more money from our hobby by several-fold. And mainly, the luckiest thing that ever happened is we were turned down by these publishers.
Right. And it's what we tell people today with all the problems in the world. Every ending is a new beginning.
That's
and
right.
You just have to learn to take advantage of the opportunity. Now, I've known you both a long time. If you spend an evening with the Zagats, you better put your sneakers on, because 9 restaurants is nothing for them to do in a night. Now, of course, they don't eat full meals in every restaurant.
Right. What we'll generally do is either go through a particular part of town or try to see all the new restaurants or pick a theme and go from restaurant to restaurant, not eating, just looking, getting a sense of what it's like, looking at the menu, and then deciding on what place seemed like it would be an exciting place to go at the end of the night when we're absolutely famished.
Right, starving. Well, I always meant to ask you, and I never did, when you were both growing up, you didn't know each other then. Did you meet at Yale, by the way?
We met at Yale Law School, although it's an interesting story because Tim...
We actually met earlier but didn't know it.
That's right. Because my father's hobby was doing magic, and Tim came from a family that had a lot of magical relationships, including Houdini.
You're kidding.
And we both were at the Society of American Magician Christmas shows every year. Because when we talk about it, we
What a
realized that
story.
there we were as 2 kids.
Who knew? So you had magic. Were you both good eaters? God bless.
No, you have to go back. Nina had good food in her house. My mother thought everything had to be frozen first. And she thought that she didn't want just anybody freezing it. She wanted somebody with a lot of experience like A&P.
Right. She was
She
smart.
had other qualities.
She was
right.
a wonderful mother, but food was not her strength.
But
She
you
was a
loved to
great
eat.
gardener and made great jams.
Well, that's perfect.
That's good.
So you, though, came from a family that really liked food and
Right.
went to trouble.
My grandmother was a great cook, and I just have the fondest memories of going to her house in the Catskills with her wood-burning stove.
I love that.
Waking up in the morning to the smell of freshly baked bread, going out with her and picking blueberries and going back and making pies. I mean, those are the kinds of memories that really
Tim is
stay with you
salivating.
forever.
I should add that Nina is a great cook. I mean, she went to the Cordon Bleu, but even before that, she has the touch. I mean, some people have it, some don't.
And you have to really like it.
Yeah. I mean, what I first started cooking really when we were in law school, and it was so frustrating going through a whole term of law school and not quite able to figure out whether you got it or not. And there, in a couple of hours, you could try to make something and see that it was a success, or maybe it wasn't so great.
And people were very happy to have it. Now, are your children?
And particularly this one.
Oh, well, of course.
I had the most fabulous audience. Who could not want to cook when you have Tim to cook for?
That's right. And it landed you a husband.
That's right.
That and a few other things.
Well, it's funny because when I look at a lot of our kids today, I know the Zagats just had a wedding, our children do not marry at the stage that we married.
That's right.
If we weren't married by 22, let's say, that was old already, the flag was at half-mast. The town would say, oh, that poor family, a spinster.
You know, I haven't heard that word in years.
There aren't any more spinsters.
Nina was married at 21.
Wait, who was married at 21?
We got
You were
married
21.
We got married in our second year of law school.
Yeah. Well, people did that.
Yeah.
In my Barnard graduating class, there were only 3 of us who weren't married. I mean, my mother suffered. Now, let's go back to food. I know the children. Are they foodies? Have they grown up to be foodies?
Yes, it's interesting. Ted was always, the older son, was always very flexible about what he ate. And our younger son was difficult about what he liked at first. And then I came up with a strategy that really worked. I made up something called John's Delicious List. And I said, tell me what you like to eat. And then we made a list of all the things that he liked to eat, which include chicken
smart.
and peas and carrots and lots of things. And so I'd keep that list, and whether I was home or we had a babysitter, said, these are the things he likes.
I love that.
And they both like Japanese.
And now they both eat everything.
The thing that's amazing is when I grew up, and I can't see people in the audience, but most of them look a lot younger. But when I grew up, the idea of eating raw fish
was
a fraternity prank. It was something you just didn't do. And the Italian food was out of a can, and it always had red sauce. And Chinese food also came out of a can, and it was chow mein and chop. So we have come so far. The revolution in food in America is so extraordinary over the last 30 or 40 years, and it's all obviously for the good.
And don't forget the Zagats turned their hobby into a business, and then this series took over in America. Then next thing you know, you went to Paris, you went to London, you went all over. Has that been as powerful as the American series?
Oh, yes.
Nina.
I mean, it's very interesting to export what's basically an American concept in a way to these other countries, and we find that people enjoy participating all over. People like
love to talk
asked.
about voting and ask. They love to talk about their food. We have 5 cities in Japan, 3 cities in China, virtually every major city in Europe, including Moscow, are people surveyed every year and voting.
So you have a Moscow series?
It's part of Europe's top restaurants.
Right. Well, it's fantastic what's happened. And you look none the worse for wear, you guys. If you want to eat...
Well, everybody else is doing the eating. We just collect the money.
Excuse me. You eat on your way to the bank.
Yeah, all right.
No, but in addition, the Zagats do special events. I don't know how many of you know about their vintage series. Explain what that is, your vintage meals.
Well, I just last summer got interested. I saw some old menus from the 19th century and then started collecting them. And I thought it'd be fun to do some of these in restaurants in New York. And this year, 17 out of maybe the 20 or 25 best restaurants in New York are doing these vintage dinners. And we've had the help of people like Stanley Lobel, who's probably the greatest most famous butcher in New York. And he's got 50 cuts of meat and birds that nobody has seen, although they're available. But we've lost touch with a lot of the things that people ate in the 19th century. And we had last Friday at Keen's Chop House 6 of the leading bartenders making drinks that nobody, I doubt anybody in this room has drunk. And it's really exciting. And some of this, we call it Back to the Future. It's going to try some of these drinks and some of this food a lot of the restaurants are now putting dishes from these vintage dinners onto their regular menus because people enjoy them so much.
What a great idea. But I've been curious, and it would be interesting, too, for the audience to comment ultimately. I eat out, unfortunately, too much, like most of us, and I have definitely seen a change in the restaurant scene. Restaurants that aren't so well known can be fairly empty. Many of the restaurateurs I talk to say that this economy has not necessarily affected the volume, but it's affected the profit. People are sharing. They're not ordering fancy wines. They're taking a main course, maybe not a dessert. What have you noticed recently?
People are much more careful about how they're spending money, and with good reason.
So the only thing is they sometimes, and I think sometimes people carry it too far. The average restaurant on Lexington Avenue or 3rd or 2nd basically provides a meal that is better than most of us could cook ourselves. And a lot of those restaurants, we have 750 restaurants where you can eat for less than $30 dinner and less than $25 for lunch, $20, I'm sorry, for lunch. And 500 restaurants where it is $25 for dinner and $15 for lunch. Now, most people in this room, or at least most people I know, would be better off doing what they do well, which is work an extra hour and then let somebody else do the shopping, cooking, and cleaning. You do better at a restaurant for the most part than you do yourself, economically.
And of course, takeout used to be a New York City phenomena. Now it's all over the place. When I come home from work, I can barely get through my lobby. The bicycles are piled up with Chinese, Japanese, Indian. We say they must cook on the bike because you call and they're there. Did you ever notice that? It's weird.
Yeah, but it's the delivery part that's so unusual. Certainly when we lived in Paris a long time ago, everybody would buy things at the charcuterie and bring them home, but they'd have to go get them
they'd shop.
themselves. That's right.
Now people...
But, we've done surveying about the economic situation, and there's no question that most people are being more careful. They're cutting back on fancy wines, which they probably should have done anyway, and they are cutting back on desserts. There are a lot of ways to save, and that, of course, hits the bottom line for the restaurant. But fundamentally, I think that you don't want to see the restaurants, which are so important to this city and to our lives, be damaged. And
now,
I think we have to worry about that.
On the other hand, there are lots of restaurants you can go into that are absolutely packed.
Neighborhood restaurants, which I find.
And places where people feel there's a good bargain.
Not a bargain, but he's still doing big business.
Look at the... I think right now 250 restaurants are still doing Restaurant Week, which is something we invented in 1992 with Joe Baum. And it has become so successful, mainly because it basically gives everybody a chance to go to the best restaurants in New York and try them for a reasonable price.
Let's talk just for a minute about restaurant critics. And of course now we have food bloggers, and they have definitely had an impact, as bloggers have everywhere. They're even admitted to the White House press briefings, which is fairly new. But the role of the critic and the role of the Zagats.
Well, the role of the critic is really quite different. The critic is talking about their own experience, usually in great depth. They describe the dishes that they've eaten, how they're prepared, how the room looks. They go into an essay of types, explaining their experience at the place that night or on a couple of different nights. It's a very different approach. With us, we're looking at specific criteria.
Remember, definitionally, they are critics, and their job is to pick apart the experience, and very often they sound a little bit more critical. The laymen that we survey go out to have a good time, and they basically take a much different point of view about it. And what we do is we're asking, in New York, we have 40,000 restaurant surveyors now, and any restaurant that we cover has probably had 1,000 people there in the last year, which means there are 3 people there pretty much every day. Yeah. And so you're getting all year long, you're getting it from every seat in the house, you're getting everything that was on the menu all year long, and it changes a lot during the year. And so you have a more comprehensive, but also a shorter view. And it's possible, and not just possible, you know how often people disagree. You sit down with your spouse, and one of you says, "Oh, my chicken was so good," and the other one says, "My steak was overcooked." And the other one says, "It wasn't that waiter nice? He came over and introduced himself. His name is Bill, and he was so nice. He came over 3 times." And I say, "Yeah, he bumped into my chair 3 times, and I was on the outside, and I didn't think it was needed to interrupt our conversation." Anyway, the difference, if there are differences, it's important to point out those differences. The best, I know Ruth Reichel is going to be on this stage in a few weeks, and her last book, she reprinted one of her great reviews, and it was of Le Cirque. And it was one part when she was not recognized and one part when she was.
Made a difference.
And it was brilliant. And she described what happened on the 2 different occasions. And, you know, the fact is, if you're the critic of the New York Times and you get recognized, you're going to be things are going to go pretty well for you, or should.
And they are recognized.
Yeah, they're all recognized.
They all know them.
Inside most of the kitchens, they have 8 by 11 pictures of them.
I know.
But the other thing is, what our guides try to do is help people make smart decisions, so that by outlining the criteria that they'll want to look at in restaurants, food, decor, service, and a very short description that includes quotes from people who participate, you get a real sense of what a place is like. And you can search online, you can search all of that information very quickly and find places that are suitable for you, and you might want different things.
That's a vital thing. We are approaching this on the assumption that all of you are looking for different things on different occasions.
But it's
One
true.
night, I'm sorry.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, and the fact is we need to give you the information so you can make smart decisions. Are you going out with your college roommate who you want to just have a good time and have a lot of drinks with? Are you going out with somebody you want to be romantic with? Are you going out after work and you're tired and you want something on the way home? Are you going out before or after going to the movies? So it has to be near the movie theater and it has to be something easygoing. Are you taking a client out? Who is the client? Is the client sophisticated or not? Each occasion you're actually thinking about different things that play into your decision making. And what we're trying to do is help you make those decisions.
Right, and neighborhoods too. You know, I mean, so many things happen. When I was a kid growing up, if a neighbor's child said, "I want to be a chef," the neighbor would have gone out of the window. I mean, right? My son or my daughter, the cook, the chef, it was unheard of. Now, of course, we have Mario Batali, and we have one Daniel Boulou, one famous chef after another. What's with all these celebrity chefs? Do they ever have time to cook?
Well, they do travel a lot and they're on television a lot, but frankly, those two both did vintage dinners that were wonderful recently. They really are great chefs, and Americans have become, as a result of a lot of things, including television, have become so much more interested in food, and we have so much better food than we ever did. And it's just exciting that these chefs, I'm going to be writing an op-ed soon about this, but the chefs being celebrities, I think, help make everybody more interested, including bringing young middle-class Americans into cooking schools. We have, when I was a boy, we had maybe 5 or 10 cooking schools in the whole country, and the Culinary Institute of America was a little dump on Whaley Avenue in New Haven. And now there are over 100 cooking schools, and the Culinary Institute of America has 2 campuses, one on the East Coast and one on the West, and the one up in just north of Poughkeepsie in Hyde Park, it looks like a combination of Williams and Amherst. I mean, it's
amazing,
fantastic.
right? Has the internet hurt you guys at all?
Oh, it's been
Helped
fabulous
us.
for us. I mean, first of all, it's totally changed our business. Where we started with paper questionnaires for people to fill in, now all the surveying is done online, which makes everything much more efficient.
Save about
faster.
$10 per person and run that against 350,000 people.
So, I mean, but the efficiencies of that, the ability to have better responses because people can really type them in and see them, the ability to have our information on every platform that our customers want, We not only have it on Zagat.com, but Zagat.mobi, which is our mobile application.
It's on
and then we
phones.
have applications for the iPhone. We're going to be coming out with an application for Android, which is the Google phone.
I think
You
it's
know,
an
we're just-
unfortunate name, but you know.
It's okay. We're not gonna
Google
worry
does
about it.
We're not
everything
worrying
else so
about Google,
well.
right.
Don't worry about
So-
Google.
Not gonna
They're
give them
making money
advice.
hand over fist.
And, you know, so it helps the customer be able to really make better decisions because they've got more information available. We can put much more up on Zagat.com
Right,
than we
than
could
you
ever
could.
put in a book, all the menus, photos.
Actually,
lots of
also,
information.
although our books are bestsellers generally in bookstores around the world, we're able to put, because of the internet, we're able to do a lot of things. Like we do twice as many books, customized books, for companies as we do sales in bookstores.
How do you feel even now, even during hard times, when people call popular restaurants, unless they are on that little list, you know, when you give your name, you may have a table at 5 or at 11. Infuriating, and I think everyone has been through that experience.
Unfortunately, that list is getting shorter, and the restaurants are getting
Yeah.
easier
But
to
still-
get into. That's the best thing about the
I know that.
recession.
But you wonder, what a ridiculous, and I'm sure it's like a marketing device. Someone once said, tell everyone you have no tables and they shall come.
No, I think what they're trying to do is get 2 seatings in. And today, I think most restaurants are happy
If they get
have
one
full
seating in.
seating in.
Happy to see you.
That's right.
It is one of the advantages. People are being nicer to you.
Yeah, well, that's nice. We need that. I know I was in a restaurant the other night, and the woman who took the coat said, how lovely to see you. I've never seen her before. And the waiter was killing us with kindness. It was amazing, right? Because, well, food is a social... I find that some neighborhood restaurants are crowded because people want to be seen. They not socially, just like, hey, I'm okay. We're eating out. We want to be in company.
It makes people feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that's why no matter what is going on in the economy, people may watch where they go, how they spend their money, but they're still going to go out to restaurants because it's part of our lives. It gives people pleasure. It's entertainment, too.
I think that the restaurant industry, in comparison to others, will not be hurt as much because fundamentally we all have to eat. And it's more efficient to eat in maybe an inexpensive restaurant, but it's more efficient to go out to eat than to cook yourself.
Sort of. Well, if you have kids, you know, it's probably more practical to eat at home. But let's talk for a minute about trends. We've all gone through all the trends, and we still are in our sushi trend and, you know, the whole thing. But hamburgers have achieved a new respect. What is everyone opening a hamburger place for? I thought we had Mad Cow.
I think Mad Cow seems to have gone away.
They forgot it.
That's right.
Until the next mad cow. You know, basically, I think there's only one trend that's important, and that is the trend towards the greater quality and diversification of food in America. And it's based on some very fundamental demographics of the society we live in and all other major industrial societies. And I just think that we've come a long way, and we've got a long way to go. And it's almost inevitable that we'll see more diversification, and you'll see different types of food being served. This guy in Spain, Ferran Adria, I mean, everywhere you go in America, you see things that he has done, techniques that he has done showing up on menus. Most people don't know that they're eating his stuff, but the guy is just revolutionizing food worldwide.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I'd add to that is the fundamental thing in any great restaurant is the ingredients. And people are more and more concerned about where the ingredients come from, whether they're local, whether they're organic. All of that is extremely important to more and more people.
We're showing that in surveys now, whereas I don't think 5 years ago too many people that I know could have said what sustainably raised food was. Now we have 65% of the people we survey in the United States saying they'll pay more for sustainably raised food. That's an enormous change from knowing nothing by and large to really caring enough to pay more for it.
Right, and farm to table has become a
That's
huge
right.
movement. Sometimes I think they tell us too much. Like, I really don't want to know where the little pig was before he arrived on the plate. But it's absolutely a huge thing. We've talked about trends. Now, when you do not go out for dinner, which is... When, but sometimes on a weekend or something.
Yeah, cooks.
What is your favorite thing? Like, oh, what is it? What do you crave?
For me?
For you, and then we'll ask Tim.
For me, what I always crave are some chickens that come from a farm near us in the country. I just think that...
Like roast chicken?
Roast, yeah.
But
roast.
this
roast
farm
the
is
chicken,
amazing.
But the chickens are so superior that it makes roast chicken, which I think is one of the greatest dishes in the world, just up
Delicious.
10 notches.
And I crave the Ridgewood red barbecue sauce that comes from Ridgewood, Tennessee. I can pour it on anything, including my arm, and enjoy it.
And you love it.
This is so good.
But
It makes
you're not-
everything taste
you're
better.
not fussy.
Even her chicken tastes better with this barbecue.
No, don't hurt her feelings. Do you like ribs and things like that?
Oh, sure. There's practically nothing the two of us don't like. We like most food. And we've gotten to the point that we're willing to try anything.
We're easy to please.
Which is great. Now, how much, do you eat lunch too, or just dinner?
I usually don't eat lunch or have something very light.
And I usually do eat lunch and don't have something very light.
I know, but every now and then we all stop for a few minutes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And now, what about dessert?
I've given up dessert because I'm trying to lose weight.
But you see, Tim doesn't think it counts as his dessert
If it's yours.
if it's mine or
I
somebody
understand.
else's. Right.
I always like one for the table.
Table, right.
The table,
Yeah.
right? One for the table.
and four spoons, please.
And
You
everyone
want to
is
see
eating.
where the fork went into my arm?
I know, but it's one of our great pleasures, food, the magic world of food. It makes us feel good, whether we eat out or even if we cook. You know, something that our parents or our grandparents made. It's
That's
our
right.
persistence of memory. You know, so I was taking my husband to see the Lower East Side, and he hadn't been there in a long time. I don't know how many of you have been back. It's so chic, you won't believe your eyes.
Oh, I know.
Oh my. Restaurants, hotels, where Katz's Deli used to have a parking lot is now a glass apartment house. So we went into Katz's because that's my husband's favorite, you know, to have corned beef and that stuff. He loves that.
I love their hot dogs.
Yeah, the hot dogs are great. But the line in Katz's was over 45 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
And because the neighborhood has changed so dramatically, it was young girls in tight, skinny jeans and long boots up to the thigh, and these great
I have to
guys.
go down there again. I haven't been there.
Tim,
And by the way, I'll have whatever she's having.
that's,
But you know,
Nora Ephron.
That's right. I haven't noticed any chicness entering the interior of Katz's, however.
no,
No,
wait.
you wouldn't want that.
But last week, the crowd was unbelievable, and they...
No, I meant the servers.
Oh, it's still
and
the same
that's
horrible.
right.
You know, it's a
Still the same
wonderful,
place.
horrible place. And then you can do, which is in another of their books, go to Russ and Daughters,
Yeah.
you know, and wait on another line for 30 minutes and watch people order all this
Well,
stuff.
you have to pick when you go to these places so that you go at a time when there isn't a line.
Of course, you know, not on a weekend. Now, you brought all of your,
No, I brought just a few.
some new books. That's the gourmet. I love
This,
that.
the reason we were just talking, and a lot of these things are in the gourmet shopping. I don't think gourmet is the right name for this. It's really food shopping and entertaining, but that area that you're talking about, Lower East Side, is just loaded up in here.
And you do the market. If those of you who haven't been down in a while, that market has been totally redone, the Essex Street Market.
Yeah.
And there's a great cheese guy there, and a great restaurant, and a famous butcher. So that's an adventure. But you're the ones who took me to Roberto's in on Belmont Avenue in the Bronx.
Didn't you like that?
Oh, I love Roberto's.
One of the great things about New York, and I think not enough people know our own city, because there are whole areas that feel like you're going into another country. For $4 round trip on the subway, you can go to Italy by going up in Arthur Avenue, or you go to Brighton Beach and you feel like you're in Russia. That just area after area that really you have 30, 40, 50,000 people who don't speak very much English, and all the stores and all the restaurants are of that nationality.
And then there are also lots of places that are represented in that guide with all of the ingredients. So that if you want to do it yourself,
you go do it.
You go collect the things and make it at home.
So now that you have all these guides, including your dating guide.
That's not
dating
just dating,
dating
and dumping.
I say, if you want to get rid of the bad date, they
it
tell
tells you
where
to date, where to pick up your other, and also how to get rid of the other if
you got the order wrong. It's where to date, where to dump,
and then where to dump,
and then where to find somebody else.
So, what do you want to do that you haven't done? You travel all over, you eat all over the world, you've done the guidebooks that cover almost every aspect, from shopping for food to shopping for clothes.
Well, there are lots of other places that we want to be able to cover with our guides.
Like?
Well, we haven't done anything yet in Mexico or South America other than
we
hotels,
resorts,
and spas, but not restaurants yet. There are a lot. The world is a big place. There's a lot to cover.
And a lot of the things we're interested in doing are not just about restaurants. It's about empowering and engaging people in the experience. Effectively, I call it consumer democracy, but it's really saying and anybody here let me just ask, how many of you are participants in any of our surveys? Please put up your hands.
Well, that's good, but we need a lot more.
We need a lot more. And what we want to do is have people who have shared interests in whether it's food or whether it's shopping or whether it's music.
To be part of it.
Or movies.
That's right.
To be part of whatever they care about. Anybody who's avid about something is usually very knowledgeable and also usually likes to talk about it. And so what we're doing is inviting our friends and friends of friends and now pretty much anybody who cares enough to share. And one of the things you get amazing responses in places like China. We have 3 cities in China where we have people participating. I'm not sure the Chinese government knows this, but we have it going on with thousands of people.
And then you can read not only your own comments, but
someone
everybody else's comments on Zagat.com, and then those get turned into the ultimate review.
Well, we have a lot of questions from audiences here and audiences who are participating in this evening. From New Haven, Connecticut.
Well, starting right.
Your home. Food is a personal preference, and the Zagat guidebook could make or break a restaurant. Do you agree?
No. All we do is report what the customers think. So if you don't like the review, all we're doing is anticipating what the customers really are likely to say. And they don't tell you when they're not happy. They just don't come back. You have at least a chance when we tell you to fix it or try to fix it. Also, we generally try to cover restaurants that we think people are going to like, and so we're doing more to recommend restaurants. We don't really damage very many restaurants.
Palm Beach. Question from Palm Beach. How can we be sure we get an honest appraisal of what your team eats in a restaurant?
What team?
We don't have a team.
We don't have it. The team is everybody that participates in the survey. Tim and I don't vote. Nobody in our office votes. It's not about our team. It's about all of the customers of the restaurant.
You have thousands of people voting on the average restaurant, number one. And number two, we have a number of filters designed to prevent cheating of one kind or another. We do drive a lot of business into restaurants, and therefore some restaurants periodically try to help themselves, and we are able to identify when that's happening through a variety of tests.
Now,
But
I
we
don't...
take the whole system absolutely, we give it absolutely serious attempt to make sure
Right,
that
and your
it's-
computers also generate the results, so
Right.
you
That's
know.
right.
They
But
don't even, we've never touched a number in the history of the survey.
here's another New Haven question. I don't know if you can answer this because of ethics. What are your favorite restaurants? And what do you personally, what criteria
Well,
do the two of you
we don't
use?
answer that question,
Yeah.
but I'll make a slight exception for New Haven.
Frank Pepe's.
Oh.
One
Okay.
of our
Frank
fond-
Pepe's the best pizza in the world.
It's
They
true.
invented pizza in New Haven, not in Italy.
It's just one of our fondest memories from when we were living in New Haven was going to Frank Pepe's.
But we don't tell what is our favorite restaurant, although we will say that usually the survey results conform pretty much to our own experience and opinions. But the reason we don't is, why would you want to know what two of us think when you have 40,000 people like you who are not treated specially, who are telling you about New York restaurants? It'd be ridiculous, and I think that it is a conflict for somebody who's running the election to have a candidate in the election. And if Catherine Harris had only remembered that rule, we wouldn't have had so many problems in the last 8 years.
Now, here's a question from our audience here. How do we make restaurants quiet again so we can hear each other speak, conversations, dine, and enjoy?
Come early or late.
Yeah,
There's an awful lot of people who in New York think noise is good. And if a restaurant is noisy, it's only noisy at certain times of day. And by the way, we have an index of quiet conversations. So if you really don't like to take a chance of having a noisy restaurant, go look at that index, and it tells you a lot of restaurants which are going to be reasonably quiet all the time.
And that's also the advantage of dining in hotels, which never were noted for their restaurants and now have a lot of them. You can really hear.
That's right.
And it does make a difference. Do restaurants ever pay you or try to, sort of regale you with little favors for a review?
Well, restaurants...
Absolutely not.
No, well, it depends what you mean. Restaurants occasionally say, they want to pick up our bill, and we say no. It's a matter of principle, and sometimes you wouldn't believe how hard you have to fight to pay the bill. But restaurants will occasionally, offer.
And you eat all over the city, all over America, all over the world. Can you pick a country that you think, or a city that has the best food beside New York?
No. I think, going out in France, particularly in the countryside, is wonderful, but I say the same thing. I love Italy. It's partly a matter of, how you feel and time of year and a variety of other things. I mean, eating in Tokyo is wonderful. But the best meal I think we ever ate in our lives, we were walking down the beach in November on a windy day in Brittany, and the salt spray was coming in, and by the time we walked for 2 hours, we went to a wonderful little restaurant with a fireplace, and it probably was the best meal in our lives. And it wasn't that maybe the food was so great, it was just, were
the whole
ready.
mood.
Everything
right.
felt right.
And you were hungry.
Yeah,
Right.
and everything about it was just warm, and after you were cold and you were very hungry, it just felt wonderful.
You made me want to go to Brittany. Now, here's someone from our audience here, and she says, or he says, while I like good tasting food, my primary interest in eating out is finding food that is healthy, low salt, no butter, or fat in cream, or saturated fat. What are the chances that we can find this, or can this information be part of an evaluation of a restaurant?
I think it's a matter of what you ask for. Any restaurant will be happy to grill you a piece of fish. You can always have
What you
healthy
want.
food at a restaurant. It's just a matter of being forthcoming enough to say what you
Right.
want and having the resistance not to eat the things that aren't on that list.
Right, and chefs want you to taste good food. One night, I went out with the New York Times restaurant critic.
Which one?
Anyway, we went downtown, and this critic was a woman, and she said to me, This is healthy. It's the best chicken I have ever had in New York. So we go to this restaurant, and the fancy chef is in Paris. So the sous chef was falling all over this disguised person. And she said, can we go into the kitchen and see this amazing way you make the chicken? And we're licking everything up because it's healthy and dietetic. We go into the kitchen, and there is the sous chef slathering butter all over this thing, inside and outside. And I said, sir, where's the health? And he said, oh, you can't cook chicken without butter. You know, and he also had something which most of us don't have, a stove that had flames on either side. You ever wonder why fish is so great in a restaurant? Because you go in between these two levels of fire, right? So it's delicious because it gets grilled all the way. One person in this audience wants to know how the votes get tallied.
They get tallied by computer.
And it's totally averaged. And so you get whatever the number of voters averaged, and that's it.
Now, do you rate restaurants from New Haven again as they compare to other restaurants offering the same kind of food or against some overall standard?
Well,
Wait a minute. Can you do that again?
Yeah. Do you rate, I think I know what they mean. Do you rate restaurants as they compare to other restaurants? So
But it's how the person who's
who's-
voting,
they-
the consumer
right,
votes
but New
on it.
Haven forgot that for a minute.
Right.
That, you know, there may be 20 Chinese restaurants and you're not doing it. It's
Right,
everyone
so
else
the
it's
doing
other
it.
the customer
Chinese
of the Chinese
restaurants
restaurants.
in New Haven do, but it's the same people in New Haven are voting. If there's a difference, is probably as you get further away from major cities, the voting becomes a little bit more liberal. So you have to pay attention to that. In Kansas City, you may get a little bit better, higher vote on average than you would in New York.
Yeah, of course. Now, I want to ask this young man, what's your favorite food?
My favorite food would probably be seafood.
Okay, that's unusual. All kinds of fish?
All kinds of fish. I guess, lobster, everything. Ever since I was really young, I've been trying to find the best seafood. And
Fantastic.
How was the Jean-Georges?
I thought it was, I guess I'm not really a fan of the big fancy places that give you tiny little plates of stuff, but,
He sounds like my husband.
You like big plates.
I'm holding a job for him.
That's right. Well, he could do it. And it's amazing. And his family probably exposed him to all kinds, right? To all kinds of food from the time he was a little guy. Do you read food blogs? Do they
I
play
read a
role?
lot of them, especially when they dump on us.
Because they say
seriously.
you're not the true critics.
No. Actually, we don't. I shouldn't say something like that because it's basically not true. I read just about everything. If somebody writes well, and I know certain blogs are good, I like to see what they're saying. And I hope the same is true that they want to read, and I think they do.
Of course.
There's a lot.
What we do.
There's a lot of feeding back and forth where you refer to them, they refer to us. It's great.
Some of the best articles about these vintage dinners have been coming
From the
food
bloggers?
bloggers and not from the New York Times, where you might have expected it.
Oh, they're just a little late.
They're
They'll
a little
catch
slow
up.
with their New York
Little
Times.
slow on the uptake. Now, did we answer all your questions? Does anyone else have a question?
I'd like to add something.
What?
I think the one weakness in the industry, which is being addressed now, but is still a fundamental weakness, is service. And we have 70% of all complaints over the last 10 years
Over service?
related to service. And there is a 2-point on a 30-point scale, 2-point differential between food being higher than service. And there are some people, and one of the reasons why Danny Meyer is so successful is that he understands service, and service is more than just knowing what side of the plate to serve from or where the spoon and knife go, but it's hospitality, and that's what I think he has been brilliant at. And I think when you are welcomed by somebody who actually looks like they're glad to see you,
It makes a difference.
and they take you
Makes a
to your
huge
table,
difference.
and they really care. They seem to care about you, and they're happy. It makes you feel good, but it's still the area that in America we need to address, and the restaurant industry needs to deal with it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, not only restaurants, department stores. You know,
There's a
think
4-point
about
differential at department stores.
right?
Well, maybe one of these days we'll have celebrity front of the house people the way we have celebrity chefs today.
Yeah,
When
maybe.
was the last time any television? We have a 24-hour food network, and it's all about chefs. When was the last time anybody saw a maitre d' on television?
No. Well, that
Would
could
help.
be good and that could be bad. I mean, but you know, if you were investing all the money that restaurants cost today, you would really make sure that the front of your house was responsive and receptive to everyone. You know, that's what hospitality is about. Just like if you run a big department store like Bloomie's, every customer is your last customer. You know? Don't
right.
tell me that, look over there. Show me where it is. Or I'm not going to shop there. And I feel that way with restaurants too.
Well, we've been
Absolutely,
saying this.
it's important.
We've been saying this. We have a speaking series up at the Culinary Institute of America about service, and we really think that everybody in the industry should focus more first on hospitality and
Absolutely.
then service.
Because your experience is the pleasures of the moment. The veal may not be the whitest veal, if that matters, but your overall experience is what counts. And we have another question or two, and this audience member wants to know, Zagats, what has made your survey guides a lasting one among all the competitors?
I think the methodology and the way we do it means they're more accurate and fair. If people trust, anybody can check any restaurant guide by just looking at the restaurants you know best near your house or near your office. And if you find the 3, 4, or 5 first things you look up are accurate and fair, you begin to say, I can trust this and I can use it and go forward with it. If you found out that it was not accurate and you thought it was wrong, you'd throw it out. So our job is to keep on making people feel that when something is in the guide,
true.
that it's true.
And
And-
we keep evolving. We keep listening to our customers. When we know that they want to learn more about new restaurants, we
Right, you
highlight
do
them
it.
in the guide. When we found out that people were looking for places where they could have a quiet conversation, we added that information to our guides by doing a special index. So, you know, we keep listening to what people want and try to make it better and better every year.
You know what?
When you have those people asking for the high boots down there and
Katz's, honey. Corned beef and high boots.
We're going to put that index in next year.
You make sure. We want to make sure that you have that. Last question is, how do you take these reviews from thousands of people and turn them into little 4 or 5 line?
A lot
Sorry.
of hard work, because the ratings are generated by a computer, but the comments, the little reviews that we do, take our editors a lot of hard work going through all the comments that they receive and try to pick the most relevant ones based on the ratings and weave them into those pithy lists.
We make them focus on each of the key factors that we think in an experience: food, decor, service, and cost, or in the movie guide, acting, storyline, production values, and whether you'd recommend the movie at different age levels. So they have to look at what the comments are and make sure they've touched all the bases. But most restaurants, you get a theme, and within the first page of comments, you may have 50 pages single-spaced, but the first page or two has pretty much sets out the themes. And occasionally people disagree, and then you see people saying, 20-year-olds saying, lively, exciting, fun, a great place to pick up a date at the bar, and people my age saying, crowded, noisy,
That's
made me
right.
feel older than I already am.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
You know what I tell all the women who call me? You know, people will say to me, where do you eat here? What do you do there? They always want to know where to find men. And the best place for finding guys is at a steakhouse bar. I'm telling you, it is wall-to-wall guys, right? I said today to all the women, forget those little itsy bars in French restaurants. Go hang out at Ben Benson's or any of these big steakhouses. It's men.
10 years ago, maybe more, we were asked by the Daily News to ask women and men what they thought were the 10 most romantic restaurants in New York.
I love this.
There were only 3 that were on both lists. The men thought romantic was eating a lot at a steakhouse.
Yeah, of course.
And I didn't think it was so romantic, but I mean, it was really, we suggested after that the men look at the women's list and the women look at the men's list because they were more likely to learn something.
Women liked places like Café des Artistes.
That's right. We love that. And women don't love necessarily, not all women, but they don't love big portions. When I heard this young man talk about small plates, which is very much a trend among the higher end restaurants, my husband gets crazy. You know, it's like an hors d'oeuvre for him. He wants a meal. His mother never made a good meal, but he wants a meal.
Well,
You know.
you have to pick what you want.
That's for sure, and it's available all over. And you've been a lovely audience. And before we let you go, feel free if there's anything else you want to ask.
I think we see a couple of hands up here.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. New restaurants. I don't know your publishing schedule or how your voting system works on any kind of schedule basis. How long does it take for a new restaurant to be incorporated into your guide?
Online.
Let me ask for those people who are listening in other places.
Okay.
How long does it take for a new restaurant to get noticed and become part of the Zagat Guides?
Online, almost immediately. If somebody says that there's a good new restaurant around, we put it up. We get voting 24 hours a day, 12 months a year. So we will have it up on the website within a matter of days. We have a thing called Zagat Buzz that even will talk about it and tell you a little bit about the background of the restaurant, to the extent we've been able to determine it. But in the book, it's usually annual.
Anyone? Yes, but you know what? Talk really loud for those who aren't
I wish
with
we
us.
could see it. Maybe they'd turn up
Here.
the lights so we see you.
Pardon?
Put the lights on if you can.
We can't, but someone can.
Is somebody in the back who could turn on the light?
Oh, yes.
Nice to
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. About 120.
Asking how many people work in the business.
In full-time in New York, 115 right now, and outside of New York, part-time on specific assignments, 180. We usually have 2 people in every city that we work in. One is very often the main restaurant critic, not because we want to have their opinions, but when lots of people say lovely, beautiful, it helps to have somebody who can say
who
wood
knows?
paneled Victorian as opposed to peach postmodern. You know, so we want to know when somebody says the chef is wonderful, unusual French food, that somebody can say, you know, he's using Thai spices from his 10 years working at the Oriental.
Right. We have a question right there. Go ahead, please.
This cleanliness issue that the news is talking about, will that go into the guide?
The cleanliness issue, will that be part of the guides?
Probably yes, although the way he's talking about doing it is going to change a lot, and so it may be that we have to do it on the website where if it changes and they go up, well, you don't want to have a C rating which gets changed a day later after the thing is printed.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with it, but we will deal with it.
Okay,
But I
and-
think we will incorporate some of it.
Go ahead. You had a question in the striped shirt?
With so much information available on the internet and access to manypages.com and Yelp and all the other avenues, do you ever consider making access to Zagat.com free?
Well, you know, we have lots and lots of information on Zagat.com that's free, and certainly all the voting is free. But the names, addresses, hours of operation, menus, photos,
Expenses.
videos, you know, lots of, all the user reviews are all on Zagat.com for free. The only thing that we charge for right now are the ratings and reviews. And, you know, it's something that we look at all the time to figure out, well, what information can we include in what we do for free. And, you know.
It's the most difficult strategic issue we have, but at this point in time, I like to have the subscription revenue coming in consistently and not have to worry about getting ads. And we have advertising, but
It's
it's
nominal.
a tough time to be looking for ads, and some of these sites that are totally dependent on ads may have their own set of problems. We're doing something that we think, if you do it in print and you do it in every other platform, it's paid. Why not? The system on the internet is, most people expect everything to be free, but the Wall Street Journal and we and some other people,
Consumer Reports.
Consumer
Right.
Reports, where I think the information is valuable enough, people pay for it.
Question over here. Go ahead.
You guys have a ton of restaurants, obviously, in the guide and online. There's certain restaurants that aren't in there. Are there any reasons why? And then how does the restaurant get rated?
Let me,
Well-
so that people can
Yeah.
hear it. There are certain restaurants that are in, there are certain that aren't, is right? Is that your question? And how do they get rated?
No, how do they get
Yeah.
in?
How do you get in?
There are many more restaurants on Zagat.com, and will continue to be more and more than we can put in a guide. The print guide is limited by the size. We made a commitment from the very beginning to have something that was portable, that you could stick into your pocket or pocketbook and just carry with you. But we don't have those same limitations online, and we're continuing to add lots of additional places to Zagat.com, and then they're on Zagat.mobi and all the other applications that we have. So we try to have as many as we can include. Not all of them have ratings and reviews, but they're there so that people can start voting on them, and we can then decide which ones will get more comprehensive treatment.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Tim.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. We love being with you.
Thanks.
Have a great evening. Good night. Are you going to
Thank
sign
you.
books? Are you going to sign? They're going to sign. You're going to sign books tonight?
Yeah, aren't we?